over to you, Commissioner O'Leary, to talk about C22 on page 24 of your packet.
Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Leary, District 1. C22 amendment speaks to prioritizing maintenance, safety improvements, and strategic modification of motor vehicle transportation infrastructure in unincorporated Pierce County that are motor vehicle dependent and lack considerable alternatives to motor vehicle transportation and/or lack stormwater and drainage systems. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining roads, bridges, and stormwater systems to support public safety, mobility, and economic activity. And I'd just like to say that, I've been back through this several times, and this amendment is second to only the sheriff amendment as far as public input. It's been supported by almost 30 individuals from the public, together with 4 mayors, each of which has their own public departments and budgets that they have to deal with. So in evaluating the merits of this amendment, I think the public has spoken quite clearly, and then we also have professionals that are in elected roles that have spoken quite clearly. I think this is a very good amendment. It offers basic structure. It lies within and does not conflict with the comprehensive plan or the Growth Management Act. It doesn't prescribe certain budgetary constraints or mandates, and it allows the council and the executive to do their job. And I know there's going to be some debate regarding the word prioritization. It's not our job to prioritize. If we did a line item budget on this, it would take it into a policy realm that is not in the charter. It's beyond the charter. That's what the council and the executive's job is. They need to be able to put pen to paper and come up with a budget. All this does is give basic structure and requirement for them to give a priority to this element. It also requires transparency, which has been discussed greatly here, because it requires reporting. So the public hears where this money is being spent, what's being done, and where the priorities are given. Unincorporated Pierce County, especially in the outlying areas, has been impacted by the prioritization of walking paths and bike trails. And the funding for that has been substantial. While that may be a form of transportation in incorporated high-density areas, it is a form of recreation in the unincorporated lower-density areas. And I think that distinguishment has to be clearly made and recognized. We're a diverse county. We have urban and we have rural. And I think it's important that we give a fair balance to both. So I'm certainly open to hear everybody's discussion and welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now for, sorry, I really jumped back in there. Now for discussion, I will probably be pausing a little bit more just because we have our commissioners online who I want to make sure they have time to get their hands up since we can't see them waving away. So any discussion for C22? Commissioner Roki?
Commissioner Roki, District 3. I am definitely in a district that is impacted. Our district is rural and depends on motor vehicles. We do not have transportation options, public transportation options such as public transit, etc. So, and what I really like about this proposal is the fact that so many of the public have reached out and that this has resonated with them, and it's also resonated with people in my district. So I'm hearing from people that they like this proposal and it makes sense. I think there is some opportunity I'm hoping it makes it in the hopper. I'm assuming it will. And I think there's some opportunity to wordsmith, maybe simplify a little bit because the charter is so high level. But I really appreciate Commissioner O'Leary bringing this forth because it is worthy of discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Saran?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Surratt, District 5. I appreciate the well-intended proposal that is before us right now, and it's clearly generated a lot of public interest, and it certainly speaks to matters that I'm very passionate about, and that's transportation and urban growth policy. But I do want to be direct here. The proposal may appear helpful, but it doesn't do what it claims. It will have legal operational effects that do nothing, and it will have institutional policy effects that will harm county governance. That is because, in practice, this proposal is redundant with existing law, and it will almost certainly deliver negative outcomes because of how it must be interpreted by staff and by county leaders. The core idea of this proposal, prioritizing maintenance, preservation, improvements, and enhancing drainage systems, is already codified in how the county must operate. The county road fund, which pays for most of our transportation system, is restricted to such road and stormwater purposes and is almost exclusively invested in unincorporated Pierce County. State programs reinforce those same priorities, and other funding sources are also constrained by law. For example, the transportation impact fee, which is tied to road capacity projects exclusively, and the real estate excise tax fund, which is restricted to certain transport capital projects. So let's be very clear for everyone and for everyone who has submitted public comment. This language does not change how the county can spend money or what it is legally obligated to do under the law. And it does not create any new revenue. And that is a deeper flaw here. The proposal says very broadly, public capital and maintenance expenditures shall give priority, but then never defines which funds that applies to. Are we talking about the county road fund? Are we talking about REIT or TIF, the general fund? We literally don't know because of this proposal. Most of those sources are legally restricted by law and are not interchangeable. By failing to specify, the proposal creates ambiguity, and it implies some level of fiscal interchangeability that this county does not possess. So if it doesn't do anything, then why put it in the charter? Well, the charter language shapes how decisions are made for a very long time. And this language in this proposal is intentionally not neutral. It elevates motor vehicle-oriented mobility over everything else and creates a hierarchy of investments. That would have real consequences. Consider new and expanded sidewalks, trails and pathways, safe routes to school projects, ADA projects, ferry and multimodal projects, new traffic signals, channelization changes, and other safety-oriented projects. These are popular and indeed critical investments all across Pierce County, but they are not motor vehicle-oriented. Such projects are added to the Pierce County TIP, often at the request of citizens, to address real safety issues that are present in someone's community. They are not at all secondary. They save lives and improve quality of life. So this proposal risks shoving those to the side or off the funding list entirely. And that is a real policy shift with negative consequences for every single district. Except for ferries, every one of our districts carries an extraordinary demand for each of the projects and project types I just listed. So if the concern is safety and system performance, especially in the rural parts of the county, we already have very effective tools. One is the road safety plan of the county, which prioritizes high-risk road networks in rural unincorporated areas. The other is our concurrency policy, which requires additional capacity on road segments when certain volume thresholds are met or exceeded. These are the legitimate county tools to address this issue and influence decision-making. If more or better tools are required, they should be developed at the council level. Inserting one person's group or one person's groups or district's priorities into the charter as a vague direction is not what this moment calls for. Additionally, Many of these priorities are already in the transportation element of our comprehensive plan, and that is the right place for such policy. Where this proposal goes beyond what is found today in the comprehensive plan, it does so by dodging the vetting process that builds public support, and it forces it through the charter. And that gets to a very big issue. One we've kind of already heard from the public and from people on this commission, that this is a policy matter, and policy does not belong in the county charter. The charter defines core structure and authority, not very sensitive and nuanced public policy like transportation policy that must be analyzed carefully. Embedding policy creates inflexibility and conflict with our own planning efforts. And that makes zero sense, and that is not why we have been convened to serve on this commission. And we do not have to guess where this leads, because the San Francisco Charter, as a prime example, is hundreds of pages long, and it's filled with policy directives that greatly complicate governance there. That is not a model we need to emulate, and yet this proposal fully embraces the San Francisco policy model for its charter. I do want to emphasize that the received public comments have largely focused on congestion, growth, new development, not preservation or maintenance. And by the way, that likely has to do with the county expertly maintaining our system within the resources that they have available. The real public concerns are around how growth is distributed, whether infrastructure is keeping pace with that growth, and the traffic impacts being felt by our communities. These are profound public policy issues, and this proposal does nothing to tackle them, nothing at all. Instead, it reframes a complex problem as being just one of prioritization, creating the appearance of action without actually tackling the underlying problem. If only it was so simple. This proposal does not fix transportation challenges, and for that reason, I believe it fundamentally misleads the public. It does not fund major projects that we cannot afford. It does not address the cost of material, real estate, and labor. It does not change sprawling development practices. It does none of those things. And we need some perspective here about cost. A single road project that expands the roadway prism, say in East Pierce County, can cost the entire annual transportation budget for Pierce County. So to my colleagues on the dais, do you want all of your dollars going to one corridor project in one district? Of course not. Each district has vital projects they want to fund, but we are all competing for money from the same funding pool, and that funding pool is every year diminishing in its size because of cost increases and because of inflation. Money is the real constraint for Pierce County transportation, and this proposal does nothing to address it. And even if we ignore all the other issues with this proposal, the proposal still doesn't actually require anything meaningful to happen. Subsection 3 says the county may prioritize investments. May is a permission, it's not a requirement. So even in this action section on strategic modification, it has absolutely no teeth and actually does nothing for the county, nothing new at all. So this proposal makes symbolic changes to the charter, and it implies it will lead to real change. It will not. What it risks doing is strangling our mobility policy. It risks sidelining good projects that some might consider unfavorable. It would eliminate opportunities for continuous improvement in our transportation sector. If you want better outcomes here, focus on real policymaking. Get better elected leaders into office. Make strategic funding decisions that make sense for your district. Make responsible land use choices, and advocate for clear policies at the council or at the state level. That is how you improve things. Actual politicking and policy making, not by inserting unproductive language into this charter. So I'm going to be a no vote on this proposal if it wasn't immediately obvious, and I strongly encourage all commissioners to do the same. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Hannick?
Thank you, Commissioner Hannick, District 1. I am for this proposal. I believe, although it's not a mandate, it is changing the mindset of putting the strategic modification in Part 3, where you have prioritizing of the motor vehicles. That's not saying they don't do the other things. But it's saying if you have a choice between a couple of different things like bicycle paths or wider streets, that wider streets are happening instead of the more bicycle paths perhaps in places that may not be used very often. I do judge proposals at this point as we go on in the length of it and the easy ability for voters to understand. And using that marker, I did notice that the ability of the people to understand this, and many comments about this proposal tell me that even though it is long, it is easy to understand for the voter. And I do wish it would be tightened up a little bit more, but I would have a due pass to work on it a little more, at least to the next level. Thank you.
Commissioner Layton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Layton, District 7. Thought long and hard about this proposal in terms of what it's trying to do and listening to the proponents and the public comment. And I agree with everything my fellow Commissioner Surratt has said about state law, the restrictions. And I'm not going to really repeat much of what I have in my own notes about what he spoke about. What this proposal does, in my mind, is it sounds nice, but it does nothing. And it's unfortunate that many folks who read this think that they're going to get their infrastructure fixed. And I'm concerned that this proposal was thought of and drafted of without any research about how the county funds their infrastructure, what funds it, how it's funded, where the projects are being spent and spent. And it's very unfortunate because we've, in my mind, have led the public in the wrong path about public policy around transportation. I'm going in my 16th year working in public policy on transportation. I work at the federal, state, and I've worked at the local, regional levels on public policy on transportation, not just in public transit, but in other aspects. And the fact of the matter is, as Commissioner Surratt said, public or transportation infrastructure in Pierce County is spent on unincorporated parts of the county. I don't see a county public works person working on the pothole outside of my street in downtown Tacoma. So I've heard a little bit of this unincorporated. Everything is done in unincorporated. And I think that that is driving a misleading talking point that is very unfortunate here about where the dollars are being spent. In the initial proposal that this was being brought forward, I asked prioritization over what? Are we to prioritize the general fund, which is 78% of public safety? The answer is no. The answer is no general funds are spent on public or on infrastructure. It is all from the county road funds, which is funded by the gas tax share the county gets and impact fees and other fees that Commissioner Surratt had talked about. And those go to many different things. And all it does is take a simple look at the transportation improvement plan that the county statutorily must produce to the state every year. So if we're talking about transparency, it's already there. If you look on page 79, it outlines where the funds have been going and where they will be going for the next 6 years. And sure enough, if you look at it, the number one funded item in there is preservation and maintenance and new funding. And if you look at the data itself, 139 million in total was spent on transportation, will be spent in 26-29. And yes, 23 million of it is spent on non-motorized projects. But you know what? Most of that $23 million is a grant fund from the state or the federal government. Only 507 million of it comes from local dollars, and that is a match dollar. And I've heard a little bit about oh, a roundabout, we don't need to spend that. I've heard that before about a project in Commissioner Lance and Layton's district of Fox Island. Did you know a roundabout is actually cheaper in the long run than a conventional street light? And it's safer for the motorized folks, 78% less crashes. And it produces less congestion. It reduces it by 80%. So I fear that we've used this as a talking point that does nothing. What I've heard through the public comment is, unfortunately, and I believe this, and those who have followed my community organizing over the decades in this county, is that we've grown the wrong way. We've allowed the unincorporated parts of this county to develop and grow the wrong way without any control. And we don't charge our developers enough fees that matches the growth that we are hearing about. And the county has not used their Transportation Benefit District Authority to help fund the road projects. They formed the district, but the county council has yet to start initiating any revenue from it, which they can do tomorrow on Tuesday if they really want it. And I don't hear any advocates saying we need more funding. The problem is resources versus demand, supply and demand. And what we need is a better control of our development rights in this county and where we're developing, how we're developing, where we're going. We're building huge city-like areas without any city infrastructure because we're allowing that as a county. And it's unfortunate, it's sad. Developers want to build these things and then demand that the county gives them services. And that's very unfortunate because it puts the county at a wrong hand right out of the gate. Commissioners, this is fundamentally a policy in the long run. As Commissioner Surratt said, this does not belong in our charter. I challenge the proponents of this and those who are researching it and advocating for it to go down to the county council and say, hey, start funding it through the avenues the state has given us of the Transportation Benefit District Authority. And then we can start seeing these projects move forward. Very critical projects. I know that I talk about me living in downtown Tacoma, but my mom lives out in unincorporated Pierce County past Bonnie Lake. And I drive through there all the time. My great-grandmother was born and raised in Buckley. My family is from that part of our county. It's born and raised in me, dairy farms out there. I know this county, I've traveled it, I understand, and I sympathize with it. But it's unfortunate that this amendment has drawn folks to think about it in a way without folks really researching how the county funds our transportation infrastructure, where the money is going currently and where it's planned to go. It's already doing everything that we're talking about. The problem is we don't have enough money and we keep developing the wrong way in our county. Commissioners, I urge a no vote on this amendment tonight. Thank you.
So I know the clerk already got this, but Commissioner Strickling is here with us tonight. Thank you. Just since we don't have video tonight, I wanted to make sure to say that. Commissioner O'Leary. Okay. So actually, next is Commissioner Ginn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Ginn, District 4. I'll only add briefly that I'm not going to be voting for proposals that I think are policy proposals across the board. I think although it can appear harmless to have to signal what we value or what we want to prioritize as a county within the charter, I think it creates a dangerous precedent about the scope of the charter and our role and what we can and cannot do that feels misleading to the public. So I do want to repeat what I shared the last time we discussed this, that I really don't want to lose all the heartfelt public comment that was submitted, and believe it would be better to put it together and share it with the council and make sure it's part of our reporting. Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Hello, Commissioner Fletcher, District 5. I am in support of Commissioner O'Leary's proposal. I think it's sorely needed in this county, and the purpose of our temporary office is to take a very forward look at where this county not only is, but where it needs to be in 10 years. I think this is a step in the right direction towards setting up Pierce County for a prosperous and growing next decade. To the commissioners who are not in favor of this proposal, I think the criticisms provided only underscore the need for this proposal to happen, because the residents of rural Pierce County have identified a need. They've identified this forum as a possible way for this need to be addressed. This type of proposal, I think, is in the scope and nature of this charter. I'm happy to work with Commissioner O'Leary on specifics, but frankly, I do think the way it's written is designed to empower, the council or the executive to take initiative on rural infrastructure matters. I think it's totally within county government's ability to do that. I'm happy to work with you, Commissioner O'Leary, and for the detractors, there is a lot of specialized knowledge on the board, and would encourage collaboration, even if it is in the form of direct and honest criticism. So I will be supporting this, and thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Heatherington, District 2. So I struggled a little bit with this one. I think one of the things that kind of boils down to me is the amendment that I put forward, C12, and is it policy or does it belong in the charter? And I've been struggling with this one because it's kind of where my heart lies. It's kind of stuff I work on every single day. Transportation funding, just for example, the state underfunds preservation and maintenance by $1 billion a year, and the counties do that exact same $1 billion a year throughout the state. And so it's a matter of just not having the funding. Yes, we need to prioritize it, but I don't want to beat a dead horse to what some of the other commissioners have said, but we need to push our county officials to fund it better. I mean, for example, our county has a transportation benefit district that has already been mentioned. The last time that they have met was 2019, 7 years ago. They have not had an official meeting in 7 years. On the website right here, they still have on the Board of Governors are now Commissioner Ryan Mello and Marty Campbell. So if you're going to be serious about funding transportation in this county, you have two people that don't even serve on the council as on your website, still on the Board of Governors. So, I mean, and the public needs to push their elected officials to use the tools that they have to properly fund our unincorporated county roads. So, that's what I got.
Vice Chair Lentz?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all the work that Commissioner O'Leary has put into this, and I'm extremely sympathetic to the input that we've received on the issue of traffic and impassability of certain areas, and I can certainly relate to that. Although I live in the city of Tacoma at the moment, I grew up in the area of District 7 that is rural or certainly suburban. And just this weekend, I spent time with friends and family who live outside of the city limits of Gig Harbor, and their complaints of the impassability from new developments outside of the incorporated city limits of Gig Harbor, causing them to be unable to get places that you used to be able to get in 10 or 15 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes. It's real. It's a real problem, and I appreciate that. But that said, for many of the reasons that were stated already, I can't support placing this into the charter. I am echoing what Commissioner Ginn said, that I don't intend to advance policy and aspirational proposals with my final votes as to what goes on the ballot. I don't think that that is what we should be doing, is placing those types of policy proposals into the charter. And specifically with regard to the language in this proposal, I think that if it were placed in charter, it would actually be somewhat of a disservice. I think that much of the language is aspirational in nature, and it's vague and it's undefined, and that places the county at additional risk. How do we know when priority has been obtained? What does that mean? How do we know that we've achieved these high level statements as to prioritization policy to the greatest extent. Those are not measurable things, and because of that, I think that for many of the reasons that others have said as well, I echo that I think it's actually creating a disservice, that this is not the vehicle or the right place to solve these very real problems. So I'm going to be voting no in its current state as well.
Commissioner Likens?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay, great. Well, most of what I have in my notes has been covered by speakers, Sherrod, Layton, Ginn, and Lance. I just want to say I also sympathize with the concerns, and I appreciate Commissioner O'Leary's intent. The issues around growth in unincorporated areas and the lack of infrastructure is a real problem. But this, I agree, is policy. It's not measurable and doesn't belong in the charter. And I'll keep my comments brief, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner O'Leary, you said you wanted to go last, so here you are.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Leary, District 1. I want to speak to a few of the things that have been said. Regarding policy, we have an amendment in the hopper currently, the intergovernmental amendment. If there was ever policy in an amendment, it's that one. And it's evident by the fact that there was a council resolution together with an executive directive given that states basically the same exact language. And when I brought that up to this body and said, this is policy, it's being dealt with, why are we redundantly putting this into the charter? The answer was accountability. We want to have that in the charter because resolutions come and go. So I'd ask all of you to remember that. Because the very infrastructure that we're talking about here is infrastructure that was paid for by the taxpayer. The county manages it, and the county's supposed to maintain it. But these are taxpayer dollars. And the people impacted by the lack of maintenance is the taxpayer. The people that are impacted by the potential safety issues is the taxpayer, the citizen, the voter. And you know, I did some research on this, believe it or not, prior to putting this together. And I also did quite a bit of research coming into this meeting tonight because I understood there was probably going to be quite a few things brought up. And so I did the AI search, and I found that depending how you pose the question, the AI response varies. But the response that didn't vary was the response from the public, was the response from the elected officials. And this is not designed to benefit one district, as was called out earlier. This is designed to benefit the entire unincorporated areas of Pierce County. And the reason it states unincorporated is because many of the incorporated areas have their own street departments. So I don't really follow some of this. This is simply a tool. It has to be broad scope. It can't be defined as budgetary in any kind of a line item sense like we would normally look at a budget. And in my opinion, it offers accountability. And I've heard it stated here now 2 or 3 times that this does nothing. Well, if it does nothing, what are we worried about? If it doesn't do anything, where's the problem? So I am going to ask folks to please reconsider because this is a concern, and I am concerned what the big opposition is to this if it is so ambiguous, so aspirational, and so undefined. Thank you.
All right. see no other cards up, it's time to come to a vote to move C22 into the hopper. So,
I'd like a roll call vote, please.
and thank you, Commissioner O'Leary. There's a request for a roll call vote. So, all in favor of,
We got a roll call, please.
Commissioner Layton?
More for purposes, we technically don't have a motion on the floor, so do you want to move just official motion, move it, and then somebody second it, and then we don't need to debate again? We don't have a motion on the floor.
Thank you so much for that, Commissioner Layton.
I'd like to move this for a motion for a vote to go into the hopper, please.
Second.
A move from Commissioner O'Leary and a second from Commissioner Heimlich. So all in favor, we'll do a roll call, sorry. I just get into a groove and I just keep going. So we'll do a roll call vote. Clerk, do you mind, please?
Lisa Boyd,
Nay.
George Consuelo,
Nay.
Mason Fletcher,
Yes.
Kate Ginn,
Nay.
Sharon Hannick,
Yes.
Caleb Heimlich,
Aye.
Elizabeth Herrera,
Aye.
Billy Joe Heatherington,
Nay.
Jake Hunter,
Nay.
Martha Lance, no. Justin Layton,
No.
Brenda Likens,
No?
Brenda Molesky,
Abstain.
Jerome O'Leary,
Yes.
Holly Rogie, aye. Lujana Rohr, yes. Devin Rydell Kelly,
Nay.
Troy Surratt,
No.
Jen Marie Strickling, abstain. Kelsey Barron,
Aye. Or yes, sorry.
I have 8 in favor, 10 opposed, and 2 abstentions.
So, and
That includes people online.
yeah, they were part of the roll call. So then that means that motion fails. And we will move on to C23.